starting recording now. Okay. Hopefully that's all right. I just had some weird error, but I think it's recording. It says it's recording, so let's go ahead. So that was, again, we're listening to Monteverdi, because Monteverdi really is this figure that straddles the Renaissance into the Baroque, and we'll actually get into some of his early kind of Baroque things as we get into chapter 11 and 12. So I am going to move. So today, there's 2 handouts for today. But before I talk about, this is the last class on triple paraphrase. You have your TWB 07, which is due tonight. So we'll be going through that today, and so you can be in class today. But I want you to be preparing for next class, and I'm only saying this because it's the only time, and it's the only theory that I've ever taught, and it's the only textbook that teaches how to set text. Something that actually is important even if you're going to be in popular music. We need to know how to set text really well. So chapter 11 is both about setting text and about 2 parts. So it's kind of a little bit taking us further in melodic dialogue, but we're now going to be in 3/2 meter, where the cantus is on downbeat to downbeat, because we now have dactylic and tribrachic figures. But you're also going to learn how to use the text to determine your rhythm, because really we speak, how I'm speaking right now is in rhythm, and we put emphases on certain places, right? So the emphasis that you use when you're speaking and when you're using language needs to match the musical stresses, unless you're purposely trying to play with that, right? So that's the other thing. You need to know where the stresses are, because we don't understand each other when we put the emphasis on the wrong place, right? So putting emphasis where it needs to be actually makes more sense. So what I would suggest to you is we're going to use just a 4. All you need is to bring to class, if you want, 4 lines. It can be a stanza from a poem you like. You can write something. It can be 2 to 4 lines. It doesn't have to be 4 lines, but something like this that ends on a strong beat. And what I mean by that is, in this case, she loves her love and love is no more, right? So that's a strong beat, and it's only 1, because that's the best way to, it's a stronger close than what Horton and Ritchie requires. So bring something like that in, and we'll actually have time in class to work on something, and it could be text you might want to set, because you're going to have to write a vocal duet. I will give you text. There's two options for your for assignment 11, TWA 11. So you either can use the given text, so you don't have to find text if you don't want to, or you can choose your own text and then apply what we'll learn next class, sort of finding the strong and the weak in class. So I'm going to do this one in class, so show you how to do a scanson analysis. So finding the strong and the weak. And sometimes finding the strong and the weak also is somewhat personal too, right? So you can put a strong on a place that someone else might put a weak on. It's not something that it's a set rule, just like in music and sometimes too, that there is rules. But of course, there is some moving around within that, depending on where you want to put stresses. So some words and some phrases, it's pretty obvious where the stresses are. Sometimes there's a few different options. So I guess that's your homework in some ways for Wednesday, along with everything else that you have to do. But if you have a poem that you love and you've always wanted to set, maybe now is the time. But you're only going to need 2 to 4 short phrases, because these are short examples. So that's all and put it in a Word document like I have it here. This handout 1, I should keep it on. This handout 1 is your handout for next class, so you can actually see what I did and set it up. It's really helpful to have it set in double. I don't know why I put it in twice. I put it in twice, but this is how you want to have it set up so that we can put strong, weak on the line above. Any questions about that? Hopefully that makes sense. But of course, if you don't want to
Can you write a melody and then write a poem to that?
Yes.
Just if you have more musical ideas than
right.
ideas.
Potentially, except for like your musical ideas are like for chapter 11, you're still going to be basing it off of a cantus, right? So we're still going to be thinking about when you're, I can't remember if the cantus is in the top or the bottom actually for a vocal duet, but anyways, we'll talk about that on Wednesday. But it's sometimes easier. You often want to devise the rhythm first. I mean, if you were free composing, of course, you write the melody and then you set text to that. That's fine, and because then the text comes with the strong and the weak. For this one, it's just better to find the text first, because then we'll be deriving our rhythm from the text. So, and that's just the way that we're going to do it. Okay. Good. So, any other questions about getting text ready? It's a fun chapter. I like chapter 11. Actually, I like all the chapters. If I start saying this is my favorite chapter, I'll say that for like a bunch of chapters. But okay, so handouts for today. We're going to start with talking about phrase cadences, the initial measure, and the final cadence. I may not work through this whole worksheet, but I want to get through it quickly enough so that you can see how this process works, and then we'll apply it right away. Right, we'll apply these options that we have. So first thing, and this you should remember this from last week when you did the textbook online quiz. So what I'm going to do, there's 3 phrase cadences available, and you're going to have to do probably just one phrase cadence, because I think it's an antecedent consequent that you have to write. So it's either bar form, you can write either in bar form, or just do a simple antecedent consequent. So you're dividing your triple paraphrase will be in 2 phrases. I've decided, because you can see I've hidden the initial and the last, because you can only put a phrase cadence in the middle somewhere. But I am going to about beat 7, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is the 7th beat. There are a total of 13, so 6 or 7 is around where you want to end this one. And I like this because we kind of have a stepwise figure here. So that's why I chose that one. In Muse Score, I'm going to indicate that with a pause. So this is where about the halfway point is. So it means that in this middle measure here is where I'm going to create my phrase cadence. So our first way to do one is a whole note followed by a half rest. So that's simple enough. You take that, and that's a whole note there. I think I'm just going to turn my there we go. Okay. So a whole note followed by a half rest. So that's simple enough. Okay, so that's easy. That's your first phrase cadence. The next one is a dotted whole note followed by a lift pause. Simple enough. And then the lift pause is under breaths and pauses in Muse Score. And now you have a little lift pause there. And then a whole note followed by a lift pause, interrupting a melodic figure. So we're going from here, from a G to an A. So you could do, I think I'm going to do a skip step, but there's lots of options for you. So this is my background melodic figure, and the lift pause comes after that downbeat note. Okay, so we're interrupting a melodic figure. So you think of it as a regular downbeat to downbeat melodic figure, and you interrupt it. Okay, so 3 basic ways. We're going to choose one of those ways once we get to composing a triple paraphrase here. Okay, so we'll choose that there. Next, displacing a cantus tone. Now, just so you know, I actually created these in Finale. This is just an aside, and good thing I practiced, or I tried this, but this for some reason is not showing as 3/2 very well. So I did this even, but it still will only let me put 2 notes in. So this is a program to program glitch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert. So if you're working along with me, I would insert 2 measures here, and we're going to use these 2 measures because they seem to work better. Okay, so at this point then, displacing a cantus tone. So what this means, and you don't have to do this, but it's something that you can do, is say you want, and you don't have a place where you could do a 4-note passing. Say you wanted a 4-note passing, but we only have a 3-note figure here. So let's decide we're going to do 4-note passing from this F. So we're going to go F, G, A, and then on the downbeat we're going to get to a B flat, which means I have moved this next tone, which is supposed to be A. I'm going to move it to the weak beat, but then at the same time I need to be thinking, how can I now decorate this? So I'm going to, let's now do dactylic figure. You could just do passing down if you want, but I'm going to do another 4-note melodic figure. So I'm going to do a cambiata. Oops, I did that wrong. Well, I'm messing this up a lot. Oh my goodness. Okay. So then on this downbeat, I actually need to be, so this is my first note. The next note is supposed to be an A, but with the passing figure that I've decided to expand the shape of the line, now I'm going to a B flat instead. So now my cantus tone is this quarter note. I've shifted it over to a weak beat. Then I've done a cambiata figure, downbeat to, oh, I keep doing this wrong. Downbeat to downbeat here. Okay, so now the 3 notes were supposed to be F, A, G, downbeats. So I have F, and now I have B and G, and now I have my computer is not happy with me today. I might have to start everything again. Hang on. This has rarely happened when I'm teaching, but today it's happening. But you can see this. If I lose this, which might happen, we at least have it on the recorded and everything else. But I am going to I'm going to quit MeScore. It doesn't even want to quit. I'm going to force quit MeScore. Okay. All right, well, that was fun. All right, so I've got the second one up. Let me just open the other one. We'll see how far we got. We've passed the rhythmic displacement, so we'll move on to the final cadence, or initial measure and final cadence. Yeah, so look at that, we lost everything, but that's okay. So we got past that. I will fix it for I'll make a PDF of it, but let's now move forward here. So we have initial measure. There's a bunch of openings available. I'm just going to do one of each so that you can see this, but the first cantus tone can be on the downbeat, and then you can apply any of the 4 rhythmic patterns along with an appropriate melodic figure. So if you're going to do, and just because they're new, I'm again going to do 4-note melodic figures. And look at that, we don't have sound anymore in MeScore. Anyways, we will just not worry about that. Okay, so there's a 4-note melodic figure, just downbeat. That's how you could start it. We have 4-note passing. So that's simple. If you wanted a 3-note, I mean, we could do anything from a skip step, a cambiata, what else could we do? Incomplete passing. So anything that decorates that 4th. We could even do a broken chord to begin that if you wanted. So those are all sorts of possible options. Let's go to the next option. The first cantus tone can be displaced to the upbeat. So this is nice and easy here. So that means that you will start with a rest, and then you have an upbeat, so upbeat to downbeat. Okay, so you have no melodic figure in this case, it's just an upbeat, 2 cantus tones with a rhythmic displacement. The first cantus tone can be displaced to the second half note. So then the paraphrase will begin with a half note rest followed by 2 half notes. In this case is one of the rare cases where you will have a melodic figure that starts on a weak beat, right? So we'll, in this case, then we have a rest. And then we have, let's maybe do a cambiata in this case. So then you have 2 half notes beginning, and I don't know what the next thing would be, but there's a cambiata. You could also do incomplete passing, or even a skip step. So there's all sorts of possibilities there. So that's one option. There'd be more options. And then the final possibility is the first cantus tone will be displaced to the quarter note of a dactylic pattern. So it's really all the options you have here, with all the different, basically the different types of melodic figures, except for iambic, you can't do that. So again, this time let's do a incomplete passing. Okay, so another instance where we have a melodic figure starting on a note other than the downbeat, on a weak beat. But that's because we have rhythmically displaced that important first cantus tone over. Okay, so there's the 4 options. There's more options than I have written up here, but you get the point, right? So you can see how that all works. And finally, and I'll just do a few of these as well, but the final cadence in a triple paraphrase must both signal the close and confirm the key. So what you're going to do is you're going to create what I would call a melodic clausa levera, right? So Bach does this all the time in his, like, if the solo violin, solo cello suites, right, where you imply harmony in melody, which is what Horton and Ritchie is showing too. So you're implying that clausa levera, so you have 2, 1, and 7, 8 at the same time. It's super easy to do this, and it's pretty fun. So in this case, we're in D minor. So we have 2 to 1 here, so we're going to skip from 2 to 7. Oh, this is going to drive me crazy. We're again having issues. See, MuseScore isn't letting me do this. So this is why I should create these documents not from a finale document, because MuseScore gets very upset with me, and this is why it's probably still not going to see. It has that on there, and I can't figure out how to get rid of it. It means there's something wrong with the. So I'm going to insert again. Okay, so this will just allow me to do what I was going to do there. All right, so we want 2. And because we're in minor, remember we need to raise scale degree 7 in minor. This is something that you need to remember for the rest of your time in tonal music. It's so easy to forget, and it's going to get more important in chapter 12. But scale degree 7 must be raised when you're returning to the tonic or tonic triad once we get into harmony. Okay, and then the final. I'm just going to put this as it's not going to let me do anything else, so I'll just leave it. It should be a dotted half note to end your paraphrase. We'll do that properly. Okay, so there's 2, 7, 8. If you started with 7, 8, it would be the opposite. It would be 7, 2, 1. The one tricky, and I have this do not allowed here, because you can do a 4-note skip step, and you can also do a 4-note double skip, but you have to be really careful in minor if you're going to do a 4-note double skip with a 7, 8, because you actually end up leaping a tritone. So that's simply not allowed. But I think this makes sense. I don't want to, we're going to do, let's actually do, I think it'd be better for me to spend most of our time actually creating a triple paraphrase. I will fix all this, and when I do the PDF that I put up afterwards, then I'll have all of these there, so I can fight with MuseScore. Yeah. So the one thing that is allowed is you can do the ascending double skip in major. You just can't do it in minor. So with a 7/8. But I will have that all there, and you can, if you're confused, you can look at the PDF while I'll have everything properly done here. But it's also in the textbook, so that's easy. Okay, so let's now look at composing a triple paraphrase. So it's really good to familiarize yourself with the melody to begin with. So I haven't been doing this as much, so I think it's good in a music class to actually be playing it. So let's do this one. Actually, I don't even know I'm assuming I'm in treble clef. Yes, I am. Okay. So let me play this for you. Okay, a cantus written by Richard Moody. I was good friends with his sister, actually, Ruth Moody, who is, I don't know if you guys know the Wailing Jennies, but she's one of the members of the Wailing Jennies, so like a little connection there. But Richard Moody also plays with the Wailing Jennies. He's a viola player, and he's actually fantastic. Anyways, when you're from Winnipeg, where a textbook is written, you end up knowing things. Anyways, and knowing people. So let's now remember our steps. Okay, our steps to complete a triple paraphrase. So prepare for a triple paraphrase. We just did this. I played the given cantus. It's already notated for us. Whoa, that moved weirdly. It's already notated for us in the upper in the upper line. Now we want to, from what we just learned, we want to choose the type of initial measure, and we want to choose the cadence that we're going to do. Okay, so anyone have a way that they want to actually start this? Is there any way that you'd want to start this? Maybe we should do rhythmic displacement so we can do that. Does it matter which one? Maybe we can, let's do like a dactylic. Let's do the most so I'm going to do the dactylic, and now that means I'm going to start on a quarter note and leap down. And of course, anything that you do, if you don't like it, let's do an incomplete passing into our next note. So this is just how we're going to begin. Okay, so far so good. And then let's do the end. Okay, so if we figure out what we want to do at the beginning and the end, maybe I will do that double skip now. And because we started with dactylic, I think I'm going to end with oh wait, can we end with dactylic? What's our possibilities? Oops, I keep hitting the wrong thing. A 4-note double. Let's just do it in half notes. Okay, so double skip means we leap down a fourth and then up, and we just have to remember that we're in A minor. So this is exactly when we can't do it. Notice what I just did? So in this case, I've leapt from a B to an F, right? Which means we've just leapt a tritone. So we are going to not do that. We could do it if we wanted to go, we can't go up anyways. So then let's just do a regular skip step, 4-note skip step. Okay, so there we've done our close with a 4-note skip step. And potentially changing that, we could potentially change that into a dactylic rhythm if we wanted, but let's just keep it simple for the moment. Okay, so we've got our beginning and our end. It's easy to just get those out of the way so we don't have to worry about it anymore. Next step. Okay, so choose and sketch your phrase type. So we want to do an antecedent, so it says compose a triple paraphrase set in an antecedent consequent period. It means you have two options here. You can do the bar form, which is add a repeat sign in the middle, or you can actually just do an antecedent consequence, which just means you divide it in two somehow. So the amount of notes we have is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we have 12. So we want 6 in the first half and 6 in the second half. So there is our 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is going to be the end of our first half. So I am going to put a Luft pause there so I remember. And then we can get this set up here. And I'm just going to put, for the moment, whole notes on the downbeats so that we know where we are. Okay, so this is our phrase cadence right here. So how do we want to end this? Maybe I will keep this the simplest, but remember the three options that we have is a whole note followed by a half rest, a dotted whole note, and a whole note that's being interrupted. In this case, I think what I'm going to do is just do a whole note, and I think I'm going to just follow that with a rest. So just how it is, so I don't have to worry about it, although it's going to be hard for me to remember because I have these here. So I'm actually, at the moment, to remind myself, actually I'll put a breath mark in so that I remember that that's where my phrase cadence is, because this is because I didn't, maybe I should have, but when I set up your homework, I didn't add a rhythm line, and so I'm going to show you what is a good way to do it when you don't have a rhythm line that you can do above it. If you're actually, this is where it's really helpful when you're just using a pencil, so normally I make you write these, then you actually can just write a rhythmic line above, but that's our next step there. So now we've divided, we know where our cadence is, and we've actually chosen our cadence as it is, right, like that. Next, so now we sketch the rhythmic pattern above the stave, and that's what I was saying is I didn't actually insert another stave in here, which I'm a bit annoyed about because then you could just do a rhythm stave. But what we're going to do is, what you could do is just do the rhythm on the beat of, like just on the note, the cantus note, and then we'll create melodic figures afterwards from that. So let's just go through this. I'll show you what I mean here. So we want to be using our four different types of rhythmic patterns. So dactylic, trochaic, tribrachic, and iambic. And so I'm just going to go through and in some ways somewhat randomly just choose. So I'm going to start with a trochaic. And you can, and it talks about this in the chapter, but that repeating is something that can be fun to do. We started with dactylic, ba, 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 and maybe we want to repeat that two phrase, so the two measure pattern, right? So then I could do another dactylic, and when you do this, you just don't need to think yet about the melodic figures, because you might want to change it once you get to the melodic figures, but let's just not think about that at the moment. It's always okay to change afterwards. So I did dactylic, trochaic, dactylic, trochaic. Now I want to maybe slow it down a little bit, or maybe at this point I can do 3. Let's do something different, so let's do tribrachic. Okay, and now I've got to my end of my first phrase. Let's go to the second phrase. And we started with dactylic the first time. Let's not do that. Let's go Let's do the opposite. Let's go trochaic first, because we started kind of dactylic first, so let's do trochaic first. Now I have realized I haven't used iambic yet. Now let's do tribrachic here. Oh, wait, I should do it on the right pitch. I'm just gonna do it. So the pitch is here, so trochaic. Now I want to do tribrachic, and partly because I have a nice big leap of a fifth there too, so I'm going to do tribrachic here. So notice all I'm doing is I'm just doing the rhythm on the cantus tone. We will worry about that later. And here, I think I'm going to do iambic at this point. So just so we have one iambic. And then we're slowing towards the cadence. So at this point, I think I will just do another trochaic. Okay. So notice it's just, I'm doing repetition figures in some ways, but it's just showing the rhythm that I'm going to use, so that now when we go to do the melodic figures, all we're thinking now about is we've really limited our possibilities. We're not thinking about, okay, what rhythm should I do and what melodic figure. Now we just say we know what rhythm we're going to do, so what are our melodic figures? So starting from the beginning, now we're going to actually be composing this as we go. So I'm thinking about the line. At this point, this E is the lowest. Why don't I create an échappé? Because then I'm going to push the contour a little bit more. So I'm going to go down to a D here. Now we've started to move up. I have a dactylic figure here. So I could do double skip, or I could do a skip step. So in this case, because I've changed, I think I'm going to do a skip step figure so that we go up to the A and then back down to the E. Okay? So now I've created another little, so here we just have going down and going up. Now I've gone down a bit further, and now I'm going up and I've gone back down again. So at this point now, again, I might just copy this. So I'm going to do another échappé. And now I have a 3-note over a third. So I could do remember a cambiata? So a cambiata would look like this. Or I could go even further, and I could leap up here and do a broken chord. So that would mean I could go up like that. I think I prefer the cambiata. I don't know why, but I think I'm going to leave that. I can remove this now because we know that cadence is set. Does that make sense so far? And so at this point now we have our first phrase. I can't play it on musical because I've broken my computer today or messed up the audio on my computer. So let's just hear how this sounds and see if we like it. So 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, sounds fine. Nothing, we don't have any tritone, downbeat to downbeat tritones. Our F to B is kind of hidden on weak beats, which is fine. So that seems to work. All right, let's just play that again. 1, 2. Okay. Now let's do the next beat. So we have a third with trochaic, easy enough to just do passing. And now we have this lovely fifth. So I would suggest we do a arpeggiation, 4-note arpeggiation, which would be that. Okay, and notice even if I'm hitting a G, by the way, I guess we haven't hit a lot of Gs, but we have a G here and a G there. We're in A minor. We don't need to worry about a G sharp until the cadence. So any G in the middle, we're not tonicizing yet. That's a term you're going to learn in chapter 12. We're not tonicizing yet. We don't need to point to that A with a G sharp. We do here, though. I screwed that up here. That should be a G sharp because we're in that final cadence. Which means we can do... Okay, well, I'll talk about that in a second. Okay, now at this point, we've been going up. Maybe we want to expand this and do an échappé going up. And so now we've got a new apogee here, and we only have one. If we left this here, we would be doubling our apogee. But we can do this échappé, which then means that we keep the apogee in the same measure. And now let's approach the cadence. And maybe let's do 2 skip steps in a row. Skip step and then skip step into our cadence. Now, what I was saying before is I forgot about this. Because we're in minor, we can do this one because when 6 comes before 7, we raise it. So then we have a B to an F sharp, which is all right. So I knew I wanted to do that for a reason and I forgot. So we can actually do that. I'd forgotten to raise scale degree 7, which means I forgot about that. Easy enough to forget. But hopefully that makes sense here at the end. So let's hear the second half and see if we like it. Okay, so we're in the key of A minor. Let's just keep this in our head, but the second half we're starting. Okay, so that's what we're starting now. The second half starts on D. So... Okay, I did a little bit of a slowdown at the end there. Okay, so not bad. Let's hear the whole thing now. Okay, 1. Simple enough going through all of that. Are there any questions about that? Yes?
After the phrase cadence, can we start on like a rhythmic displacement?
No, we can't. Not yet. There will be, yes, not yet. Once we get to other ones, there is a place where you can, yeah, not yet. I won't confuse you. Any other questions? Okay, in a perfect world, I would have remembered to put another line here. So now, but you can see how I think putting it in MuseScore like that is helpful when you're doing it with pencils and when I'm getting you to write these things, which is what I normally did in this course before COVID. I would actually want to see the rhythmic line above. But if you get to a place where where the rhythmic line you chose doesn't work, or you don't like the melodic figure that you can choose, and say a 4-note melodic figure would be better, and you wrote a 3-note, or a 3-note, you wrote a 3-note and a 4-note would be better, either or, you can just change it, right? Like you don't have to stick to your original rhythm, but you at least have one less thing to choose. And I do find that this is a lot more helpful, because then you can say, okay, I have a 4-note melodic figure, I have a third. What are my options for 4-note melodic figures with a third? Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Any questions about this before? We actually have a little bit of time. I would like to get to some, at least some stuff for your video assignment. So this week we're back to kind of our regular week that we kind of started to establish. So on Wednesday, You have your textbook online quiz like usual, but you also have a quiz dictation that's due. That's based on your problem sets, the ends of your problem sets. And then you have, so that's on Wednesday. So you do have 2 assignments on Wednesday. And then on Friday, you have 2 assignments. You have the problem set and you have a video assignment. And you haven't done a video assignment since your midterm. And though I have actually now graded your midterms, so your video assignment midterms, which I always want to do early and then I end up doing them a little last minute, but that's typical. So just remember that you have those things. So I think it would be helpful to maybe go through some of the video assignments, unless you want to do any more triple paraphrase things. We good for the moment? I think triple, it's a pretty, this is the last, after this, we're always going to be in harmony for the rest of the term. And so this is kind of a bit of a relief break, kind of a midterm relief before we kind of plow through into tonality and into the end. So the last of the easy chapters until Music Theory 2. Okay, so let's go through your video assignment for Friday, because Wednesday's class we are probably not going to have time for this. So your video assignment for Friday, you have well, kind of only 4 things, starting with saying your name makes it the 5th thing. I want us to keep using scale degrees to sing voice leading, and you will understand how important voice leading is. You kind of did a little bit with our cadences in chapter 8, but once we get to chapter 12, voice leading becomes very important all the way through a homophony. So this is why I'm starting with the voice leading now, but we have some more options, so I'll talk about that. Then you're going to sing some preliminary exercises, you're going to sing some melodies, and then we're going to do more tachydemy. The tachydemy is actually super simple because it's almost like we've gone a bit backwards, but because I wanted you to do tachydemy with dactylic and tribrachic and iambic and trochaic rhythms. So that's the simplest part. But you'll notice now we are completely and fully in tonal music and in tonality. So here's the voice leading. So this is what you know already, T-Do, or 7-8-2-1 Clausolavera, 5-3-5-8-5-1. That's our authentic cadence at the moment, so you can do that. I have included Ionian this time, so you could do it in major, you could do it in minor, you might want to focus on one of those 2, or you can still do it in Lydian or Mixolydian or Dorian. Of course, Lydian will be major, Mixolydian will be major, Dorian will be minor. Because we don't have all the other scale degrees, it's just basically major and minor, if you're thinking about it that way. You could also, or you can do, I think I said what did I say? Hang on. Yeah, both of the chapter 11. So you can either do the chapter 8 or both of the chapter 11. I didn't, on the midterms and the finals, I'll white things out, but for just the regular ones, just skip the chapter 9 ones. They're pretty boring. So if you're going to do the chapter 11 ones, you do one in major and one in minor. They're actually exactly the same, just in different keys. But you need to do both of them, one in major and one in minor. But 7-8-2-1 Clausolavera is the same whether you're in major or you're in minor, right? Because you raise scale degree 7 in minor. Okay, so let's just do the chapter 11 ones. We'll do them in 2 different keys. Hum behind your masks. So all this is singing the Clausolavera. So here we go. 1, 2, 1. 7, 8, 2, 1, Clausolavera. Okay, now let's do this in A minor. Okay, 1, 2, 1. 7, 8, 2, 1, Clausolavera. Anytime we're doing the voice leading, I want you to do the scale degrees. So that's why we're singing 7-8-2 instead of T-Do, Re-Do. Just because I want you to be having those voice leading in your head. Okay, exercises for this. I think it's 1, 2, and 3. Is that right? Yeah, 1, 2, and 3, and it's the other one is 1, 4, and 5. Okay. Okay, so in these exercises, 1, 2, 3, And you'll notice for this, it's all in major. I think it's focused on C major, I guess, and B flat. Doesn't really matter. So let's just do the first one. Okay, and this is solfege. So I want you to be really trying to focus on solfege now that and it's going to be movable do, meaning that do is always the tonic. Okay, so we'll do this nice and slow. But we're starting to think about chords a little bit, and this is a preparation a bit more for chapter 12 when we're in tonality. Okay, and so forth. So here we go. I'll do this nice and slow. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do the next one. This is all skips. So this one is a little bit harder because we're leaping around. Okay, so we're just going do, mi, so, do. Okay, so here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2. Do, mi, so, do, mi, do, mi, so, mi, do. Okay, and then the last one we have, okay, it's very similar to the previous one, but we're in cut time, so we're in 2/2 time, and it's all skips. Okay, just all the tonic triad. So 1, 2, ready, and do, mi, so, do, so, mi, do. Good. Okay, so those are your 3 options. So getting you used to singing chords, do, mi, and so. I was not great. I was okay at solfege. I had a really good ear when I was in in first year university, but I didn't know what I was singing. So I could feel that I was singing the wrong thing, but I didn't know what it was. And as I started teaching, I was like, oh, I wasn't cluing in that I was hearing like a tonic triad, and I knew I was not singing the tonic triad. And we're so geared to hearing where tonic was. So I was once doing a musicianship exam, and you guys don't have to do this, but if you go into Music Theory 2, where we're not going to have a lot of online, instead of doing the video assignments, you'd come to my office and sing for me. Okay, so that's kind of what it is when we're in person. And so I was doing one of these musicianship exams, and I got so off, like it was some crazy melody or something, but I knew where the tonic was, and that's, a lot of you do know where the tonic is, but it's a matter of knowing, like, okay, right, tonic is do. And so at one point I was totally off, and I just kind of like, I knew I had to get there, and so I leapt like a minor ninth or something in some weird way, and I ended up getting to the tonic, right? And I remember the musicianship teacher was like, you just leapt a minor ninth, and I was like, oh, and I had no idea. It's just that I knew where that tonic was. So that skill of keeping the tonic in your head, and that tonic triad in particular, is actually a really important one to develop in ear training. And I just feel like we haven't, like with COVID, we haven't actually been able to I normally spend an hour a week in singing and stuff, and we just can't do that, so it's the video assignments instead. But learning to know where that tonic is, and to say, oh, that's my do, mi, so triad, or do, me, so when we're in minor, that's really important. Right now we're focusing on major in our ear training, so to get that in our heads. Okay, so our melodies in this case that you can do is 1, 3, and 4, I believe. Now I can't even remember. Yeah, 1, 3, and 4. Okay, so, and again, I'm kind of keeping in C and B flat, but now we have an F as well here. So we're totally out of time. So let's just do the last one. Let's do the one in F major and andante in 4/4. And this is in. If you have to start packing up to go, that's totally fine. I know I'm going a bit over now. So, but anyway, so 1, 2, 3, 4. so, do is very common for basses to sing as well, like 1, 5, 1. Okay, I'll leave it there. The last thing, we may not have time, is just iambic and dactylic rhythm. So the only tricky part is when you're doing dactylic, it's ta, di, ta, ta, di, ta, ta, di, ta, right? So that's the only tricky thing there. But really all of your beats are ta, so mostly it's ta, ta, ta. Okay, that's it for today. I will see you. I'm going to turn the recording off right away, and then if you have any questions, I will be here in my office, in my office hours, but they're in this room for the next hour.